Imagine a city that just pulses with life. A place where, ancient history isn't just tucked away in books, it's literally part of the everyday. Modern ambition bumping right up against vibrant tradition daily. That's the picture we're diving into today. We're going deep into Dhaka, the really dynamic, often surprising capital of Bangladesh. Our mission here is to, well, unpack the many layers of this fascinating South Asian metropolis. We'll sift through the sources you shared, pull out the key insights, from its deep historical roots right up to its current challenges and future goals.
And stepping back a bit, it's so important to grasp that Dhaka isn't just a capital city. It really is the economic engine, the main educational hub, the cultural heart of the whole nation. We're talking over 22 million people in the greater metro area. So you immediately get this sense of striking contrast. You'll see ancient Mughal architecture, standing almost next to gleaming skyscrapers, and the chaotic traffic somehow blends perfectly with this incredibly vibrant street life. It's quite something.
That's a really vivid start. But, okay, to really get a handle on Dhaka today, we need to rewind, right?
Yeah.
How far back does this story actually go?
It goes back surprisingly far, over 1,000 years. Initially, it was part of regions like Bikrampur and Sonargaon. These were already important cultural and trade centers in Bengal. But its real rise as a distinct city we'd recognize,
Yeah.
that came much later.
Okay, so when did it really step up and become this powerhouse we start to see traces of?
Well, the key moment was 1608. That's when it became the capital of Bengal under Islam Khan Chishti. He actually renamed it Jahangirnagar. And during that Mughal period, it flourished, became a major commercial hub, especially for its world-famous muslin textile.
Muslin.
Yeah, a huge global export back then. That really drove its early economic importance.
It's incredible. A city built on textiles centuries ago. And you can still see bits of that Mughal past, like Lal Ba Fort, even though it's unfinished, and the Hussaini Dalan. But then the British arrived. How did their rule change things?
Well, initially, it actually saw a bit of a decline, almost stagnation, you could say. The British shifted trade routes, moved administrative centers, but it did bounce back later. They brought in new educational institutions, admin buildings, and crucially, railways. That reconnected Dhaka. It even had a brief spell in 1905 as the capital of eastern Bengal in Assam during Bengal's first partition, which sort of underlines its strategic value even then.
Right. And fast forward past the colonial era, how did Dhaka end up being so central to Bangladesh's actual formation?
That period after India's partition in 1947, absolutely pivotal. Dhaka became the capital of East Pakistan, and it was ground zero for the language movement in 1952. People fighting really fiercely for Bengali to be recognized as an official language. This wasn't just about language, though. It was a deeper struggle for identity, for autonomy from West Pakistan. And that political unrest just kept building over the years, ultimately leading straight into the Bangladesh Liberation War.
And that whole profound journey ended, finally, with independence on December 16th, 1971. Dhaka officially becomes the capital of a free Bangladesh. And since then, just explosive growth, right? Population, buildings, industry, everything.
Exponential is the word, absolutely.
So, okay, that rich history definitely set the stage. How has it shaped the city now, its geography, its economic pulse?
Yeah.
Where exactly is Dhaka and how big is it today?
Geographically, it's smack bang in the center of Bangladesh, on the eastern bank of the Burganga River. Now, the core city area itself is around 306 square kilometers, but the greater metropolitan area, that sprawls out over 1,500 square kilometers. Gives you a real sense of the scale.
Wow.
Administratively, it's split into two main city corporations. You've got Dhaka North, DNCC, and Dhaka South, DSCC.
And within that huge area, are there like distinct zones or districts that define it?
Oh, definitely. You have areas like Gulshan and Banani, known for being quite affluent, lots of embassies, international businesses there. Dhanmondi is a big education and residential hub. Then there's Mirpur, incredibly densely populated. That's where you find the National Zoo and the Bangladesh Cricket Board, a real sports hub.
Okay.
And Muteel is more the traditional business district. Lots of the older financial institutions are based there.
And we can't forget Old Dhaka, Puran Dhaka. That's the historic heart, right? With those super narrow, winding lanes and just heritage everywhere. Now let's talk about that economic engine, because contributing over 40% to the national GDP, that's huge. What's driving that?
What's really striking is the sheer scale of the garment and textile industry. I mean, it's not just the country's biggest export earner. It literally houses thousands of factories right there in Dhaka. This industry has profoundly reshaped the city. It's drawn millions of people from rural areas looking for work. which creates massive economic opportunity, but also huge pressure on services and infrastructure.
Yes.
But it's not only textiles, you've also got booming real estate and construction, a fast-growing pharmaceutical sector too. And increasingly, IT and startup hubs are gaining real momentum. Plus, Dhaka hosts the Bangladesh Bank, most major financial HQs. It's the financial pulse.
And it's a major logistics hub too, I guess,
Yeah.
with the international airport, Hazrat Shahjalal, and the river ports being so important.
Exactly. And things like the Dhaka Export Processing Zone, the DEPZ, that's specifically designed to pull in foreign investment.
So beyond just the commerce, what makes Dhaka the intellectual and cultural heart of Bangladesh?
Well, it really is the leading center for education and intellectual life. You've got the big universities,
Mm.
University of Dhaka, or DU, oldest, most prestigious.
Mhm.
Then BUET, the top engineering institution. And leading private universities, too, like NSU and BRACE.
Mhm.
They're huge.
Right.
And something quite notable is ICDDR, BRB. It's a global leader in health research, based right in Dhaka. Attracts top minds, contributes internationally.
And culturally, this is where it gets really interesting, that melting pot idea. Predominantly Muslim, maybe 90%, but significant Hindu, Christian, Buddhist communities too. Creates a diverse social fabric.
Absolutely. And you see that diversity reflected in its cultural institutions, like the Bangladesh National Museum, Shilpakala Academy, the Bengal Academy. These places are vital. They work to preserve and promote Bangladesh's art, language, heritage. And the city just comes alive during big festivals, especially Pohela Boishakh, that's the Bengali New Year. So colorful. And alongside that, major religious celebrations like Eid for Muslims and Durga Puja, which is a huge Hindu festival, they're massive citywide events.
You mentioned architecture earlier. It really does tell a story in Dhaka, doesn't it? From the Mughal Lal Ba Fort, like Kink Palace, Ahsan Manzil, even unique places like the Star Mosque. Each building feels like a chapter.
It really does. And what's so striking is how these historical structures sit alongside incredibly modern designs. Take the Jatiyo Sangsad Bhavan, the National Parliament building. Designed by Louis Kahn. It's a genuine architectural masterpiece, globally recognized.
Wow.
And then you have things like Basundara City, one of South Asia's biggest shopping malls, and new skyscrapers going up like Dhaka Tower, symbols of modern ambition.
That's quite the mix. But it does raise that big question. With all this rapid growth, how does the city actually move? Because Dhaka is notorious for traffic, right? Congestion, pollution, unplanned sprawl.
Yeah, that's the challenge. Huge challenges.
So what's being done? Are the solutions making a dent?
Well, there are some pretty significant developments happening. The Dhaka Metro Rail, MRT Line 6, is the first metro line. It's partially operational now, and that's a real game changer for a lot of commuters.
Okay, that's progress.
There's also bus rapid transit, BRT, projects, and elevated expressways under construction. Plus flyovers like Mayor Hanif and Kuril flyover aimed at easing bottlenecks. But day to day, you still see that classic mix. Traditional cycle rickshaws, CNG auto rickshaws, compressed natural gas ones alongside buses, and of course ride-sharing apps like Uber and Petho are very popular now.
So a mix of old and new, trying to cope.
Exactly. The new projects help, definitely, but the sheer scale of population growth means it's an ongoing battle.
And the environment, what's the impact of all this? You hear Dhaka listed among the world's most polluted cities.
Unfortunately, yes. Air pollution is severe, mainly from brick kilns around the city and vehicle emissions. Heavy traffic doesn't help. And water pollution, especially in the Buruganga River, is a major problem. Then add unplanned urbanization, the housing crisis, waste management. These are huge environmental and social headaches.
It sounds intense. Is there any escape, any green space amidst all that?
There is, actually. It's true, the challenges are immense, but it's important to say the city does have some vital green spaces. Places like Ramana Park, Surawadi Ujian,
Hartir Hill, right?
And Balda Garden, too. They offer residents a much-needed respite, a connection to nature in the middle of all that density. These places are really treasured.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit, thinking about daily life. What really defines Dhaka's lifestyle for people living there? Especially, let's talk food. What are the must-try dishes if you're exploring?
Oh, for food lovers, Dhaka is genuinely a haven. You absolutely have to try the classics. Kachi biryani, morog pulao, tahari. These are amazing rice dishes, each distinct.
Biryani, always a good start.
Definitely. And don't miss bakar khani. It's this thick layered bread or just good naan roti. For street food, fuchka and chorlopeti are absolute staples. So much flavor, so much texture.
Fuchka, okay, I've heard of that.
You have to try it. And halim, too, that savory lentil and meat stew, especially popular during Ramadan. And sweets. Can't forget the sweets. Rasgulla, Those syrup-soaked dumplings, sandesh, mishti doi, a sweetened yogurt. Delicious.
Sounds incredible. And where do you find the best stuff? Old Dhaka again.
Old Dhaka is definitely key, especially places like Chalk Bazaar. During Ramadan, it's just an explosion of food. But you also have modern areas like Gulshan and Banani with great restaurants, international options, more contemporary places. It caters to all tastes, really.
Beyond the food, then, how would you describe the people, the society of Dhaka?
Well, broadening out, Dhaka has this reputation for incredible hospitality. And there's a really vibrant youth culture. Plus, that long history of political activism we talked about, it's still part of the city's character. But you also have to remember those millions of migrants from rural areas coming for livelihoods. It creates this incredibly dynamic mix, but also highlights the wide economic gap you see across the city. From, affluent areas to sprawling slums. It's a city of immense human energy and contrast.
So wrapping this up, as we recap this deep dive, we've touched on a city with incredible historical depth, huge economic energy, a really rich culture, but also facing significant ongoing challenges. It's a complex place.
Absolutely. And connecting it to the bigger picture, Dhaka feels very much at a crossroads right now. There's a real focus from government and planners on things like smart city projects, expanding public transport, promoting green building, boosting the digital economy. Despite all the hurdles, you consistently hear Dhaka described as resilient, energetic, culturally rich. It just keeps evolving rapidly, always pushing forward somehow.
So maybe the final thought for you, our listeners, is this. What does Dhaka's story, this intense blend of ancient roots and hyper-modernization, tell us about the future of cities in the developing world? How do places like Dhaka manage that explosive growth while trying to balance environmental health, social equity, and still hold on to their unique cultural soul? Definitely something to mull over.